Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be, I feel numb all the time. Well, I've got an email here from a guy who had a bad breakup about a month or so ago. And he started to follow my work. He's hooked up with a new woman recently. But it's like everybody he meets, he just compares to his ex. He doesn't want to get back together with her, but he just can't get past it, and he feels weak, he feels bad, he feels guilty about the fact that it's affected him so much. And so he reaches out, tells me what's been going on, and asks my opinion on any other thing that he can be focusing on or should be focusing on to help him get past this and turn things around so he can attract somebody even better suited for him. Because right now he's kind of walking through that shadow of the valley of death. And every breakup, whether you're the person, whether you're the dumper or the dumpy, the bottom line is they all hurt and they all suck, even when it's of your own doing. Because your whole identity becomes associated with being in a relationship with that person. And also a lot of times, especially if it's a bad breakup, what happens is all of us, men and women both, are guilty of this, is that it's not so much that we miss the person we were in relationship with, but we miss the idea of who we thought they were. We miss the fantasy of who we thought they were, because that's what the reality is. We want to get back to when things were really good, but at the end of the day, it's really impossible with that person long term, because their reality simply will never match the fantasy that you have. It's just much better to go and find somebody whose goals and values are more aligned with your own, but you never know when it's going to happen. Sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it might be 6 months or a year. You might have to go date a lot of different people before you meet somebody that's ideally suited. It really depends. It depends on the stage that you're in your life. Sometimes especially people that have been in a relationship for a long time, because I deal with lots of guys that have been married 15, 20, 30 years. They've been with the same person since they were like a teenager. And they get out and they want to play the field a little bit. And then you got other people who have never really had much experience or haven't dated around a lot, and then they start dating a lot, and it's like you really don't know what you don't know, and that's why it's important to get a lot of good variety and see what's really most important to you in the person that you're going to date. It's like you don't know what you don't know, and when you have enough experience, then you're not going to be sitting there when you're in a relationship with somebody with 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and then everywhere you go, you're looking and you're comparing. You're still comparing other women. What would that girl be like? Do you think I wonder if I should date a girl like that instead of the girl I'm with? If you've played the field, so to speak, and you have life experience with the kind of, if you're a man, with the kind of women that you really want, if you're a woman with the kind of men that you really want, then you're never going to feel like the person that's on your arm is somehow less than, or that maybe the grass is greener on the other side, because you really feel that that person that you're with is as good as it gets. And there's nothing like that. There's nothing. I mean, you can have sex with thousands of beautiful women if you're a dude, but you make love to one woman, you make love to her soul, you really connect with somebody that you really have a good time with, and you sincerely enjoy listening to you, and she's in love with you. It's fucking night and day different. It's paradigm shifting. Never again in your life do you walk around and feel like you're missing out. And when you talk to most people in life and you ask them about their personal intimate relationships, whether or not if they've ever been in a relationship or dated the caliber of people that they really want, they really deserve, they could say, you know what, that person was my dream lover. Most people never get to experience that. And just imagine being able to experience that at will and go through your life and have multiple great relationships that are great memories. I mean, because when you think about it, just a few hundred years ago, the average life expectancy was like 30, 35 years old. So it's pretty common. You get married, and if your kids are grown by the time you kick the bucket in your early to mid-30s, then you feel like you accomplished something. Now you got people living on average to be 75, 80, 90 years, and now with DNA technology, nanobot technology, all that stuff coming online, all the things they're going to be able to do in the next 10, 15, 20 years, people literally could be living for potentially hundreds of years. I mean, think about that. Think about how much life, think about how many different careers you could have in your life. Think about how many different businesses. You might end up deciding to live in one country for 40, 50 years and another country for another 40, 50 years, learn a language, experience a culture. I mean, it's amazing to think about the possibilities. And there's nothing more frustrating in life than not being able to date the kind of people that you really want to date, because you always feel like you're missing out, and you look around and you see other people and you're like, what's that fucking schmuck got that I don't have? I don't get it. How do you get her? How do you fucking pull that off? But when you apply the things that are in my book and you learn what's in my book and you see those results, you never go through life feeling that way. You go through life feeling like, I got somebody that's on my level. I got somebody that I feel in my heart is the best. I can't fathom being with anybody and thinking that I'm missing out somehow. That there's, in other words, you walk with that person on your arm and you think they're the most amazing person in the world. It's so amazing to go from dreaming what that's like to being able to experience that. It's so freeing. It makes you feel totally, fully alive, because so many people in life struggle and never get to experience the kind of relationships and experiences I talk about in my book and my videos all the time. That people that I'm teaching this stuff to all over the world are getting to experience. I share in the success stories. So I have a quote that I wrote, and then we're going to go through this guy's email, because everybody has to deal with this. And the more relationships you go through, the more breakups you go through, the better you're going to get at it. I mean, that's just everything in life. The more you experience something, the better you're going to get at it. And that includes breakups. So I have a quote that I wrote. I'm going to go to the email next. And the quote says, "Undigested life, unresolved trauma, and unexperienced emotions get stored as muscle tension in your nervous system when you avoid experiencing them, do not feel comfortable experiencing them, or do not feel safe enough to experience them. Muscle tension in your nervous system puts you into a stressful, fearful, unhealthy, and unresourceful state. Your actions then become unbalanced, inefficient, and driven by fear. This leads to undesirable results. What you resist persists. What you experience dissolves. You must accept that life sometimes sucks, become okay with it sucking for periods of time, experience all of your negative emotions fully instead of resisting and judging them, and be authentically present with your emotions and feelings when they bubble up so you can feel them, heal them, and so they'll dissolve. Only then will you be able to move forward in a superior, efficient, peaceful, and relaxed state." I learned this through all the different spiritual traditions that I've studied in my life, and a lot of self-help. You really have to be, because everybody's trying to get away from the present moment. People don't like what they're thinking, they don't like what they're experiencing, they don't like what they're feeling, they don't like the circumstances that life has put them in, and they want to get out of it. They want to escape from that, whether they use drugs or alcohol, or they eat too much chocolate cake, or they watch TV, or they blast the radio excessively, and they just avoid life, and they avoid those negative emotions. And it's like a dark cloud that just hangs around, and it just always follows you no matter where you go. It's like they're all day long. When you go to bed at night, it's like the last thing you think of. When you wake up in the morning, it's like boom, right away, it's like the cloud comes back. And most people try to avoid it, especially men, because men are taught, oh, it's not masculine to feel your emotions and feelings. That's weakness. That's not good to experience those things. But you have to do it, because otherwise, it's like I talked about in the quote, it gets stored as muscle tension in your nervous system. And I learned this from network chiropractic care. It literally, like when you're having a really stressful period of time, or you're angry, you're pissed off, your vertebrae in your neck will literally twist and turn and pinch your nerves, and that literally turns off that part of your personality so it's not so painful. It allows you to focus on other things that you need to do, and later on, when you have some time, you can experience whatever you happen to be experiencing and feel it. You really have to feel all of your emotions in order to heal them and move past them, especially with the breakup. And that means sometimes you might have to sit in your house, sit in your bedroom, and put your pillow over your face and scream into it, punch your pillow, whatever you got to do, and declare what you feel. I feel shitty right now. I feel depressed. I feel lonely. I'm so sad that this fucking breakup happened. I feel like I have a broken heart right now. I feel like it's never going to get any better. I feel like this shit's never going to end. I feel like my life's going to suck this way the rest of my life. And experience it and be okay with it, and don't judge it and don't try to run from it. Just be totally immersed in whatever the feelings are. Because all you're really doing is you're facilitating energy moving through, getting unstuck and moving through your nervous system. Because once you experience it, then you feel peaceful and relaxed and the muscle tension goes away. But if you don't experience it, the muscle tension stays there and it just keeps piling up year after year after year. And like when you see old people and they're like all hunched over, what's interesting about the spine is that when people are hunched over all the time, your body adapts to that, and unfortunately in a bad way, where the cartilage that holds the vertebrae together actually turns into bone and it fuses the vertebrae together. So now you're literally stuck. So you imagine like being stuck in a physiology where you're like hunched over looking at the ground, like being depressed. That's all you'd be able to experience. I mean, imagine that. You literally become locked in to experience that kind of physiology, those kind of emotions. But when you experience things, if you watch how children experience their emotions, they're very authentically present with them, and then it's whether they're crying, they're upset, they're sad, they get angry, whatever it happens to be, they experience it, they cry, and then boom, it's dissolved, and then they're completely fine and just right back in the present moment. It really is an art more than a science, but it will really help you if you're going through a difficult time to be present with it. And if you have to sit there for an hour, sometimes you might have to sit there for a whole afternoon feeling like shit. But once you do it, you might wake up the next day and it's like, oh wow, I feel amazing today. That's why women tend to get over breakups quicker than guys, because they're authentically present with their emotions when guys tend to not be. They'll take the time to cry, talk with their girlfriends, cry some more. They experience the emotions, and therefore they're able to leave them behind and move forward. But guys, we all try to avoid that. So let's go through his email. It's not a very long one. So he says, hey Corey, I went through a breakup just under a month ago, and I'm pretty sure there will be no reconciliation. The relationship spiraled toward the end, leading to resentment and an ugly breakup. She exhibited a few characteristics you highlighted in regards to deceptive women. Well, that's a deal breaker right there. And this is part of, when you think about it, what will give you suffering. Because what's interesting, the most important thing to men in a relationship is loyalty. And so here you are with a deceptive woman. That for most men, that is the most important thing to us is loyalty. And here, you got a deceptive woman. And if you really love somebody, you really care about them, and they're deceptive, and you see it once, twice, 2, 3, 4, and you put up with it, like the whole time that you're together with them. But the bottom line is they don't match what you're looking for. They don't. In other words, your fantasy is somebody who you feel has got your back. And when a woman's deceptive or she cheats on you, it destroys that. But you still want them to be honest and faithful, and so you tell, oh, well, maybe they'll be faithful this time. Okay, well, I've changed my approach. And if I act really awesome and I'm a really awesome boyfriend or awesome husband or an awesome dater, then I'll get her to change. And that's what you tell yourself. But we suffer when we want reality to be other than it is. And the bottom line is, if you want to have a long-term healthy relationship, you can't have it with a deceptive, dishonest, disloyal woman. That's the deal breaker. It's impossible. It's like trying to drive a car that's up on cinder blocks by getting in and it has no wheels. You get in and you turn the engine on, you jam on the gas, the axles are just going to spin. The rubber's not touching the road anywhere because there are no tires in the car. I mean, it's like you can't make good wine from bad grapes. If you want to have a healthy monogamous relationship, it's impossible. Somebody's deceptive. You'll be sleeping with one eye open the rest of your life. And so you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that that's a non-starter. That's a deal breaker. You can't even get out the gate with that. That's a fuck buddy. That's a friends with benefits. A woman, it's like, that's it. That's as far as you go with somebody like that. That's just the reality. You can't fix somebody. It's not your job to change them. It's not your job to save them. It's just the way you got to accept that. Because when you don't accept it, you're not accepting reality as it is, and you're going to suffer. And I was never completely comfortable due to a lack of trust. It's never going to work when you feel that way. It's impossible. Despite this, I felt incredibly close to her, maybe just because we went through so much together. There were life events we guided each other through, and I can say with certainty we were each other's best friends, so when it ended, the emotional impact was pretty rough. I stumbled upon your videos. Nobody stumbles upon my videos. You showed up right on time. The universe brought you right here, dude. You're supposed to be here. And what happened, happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way. And now you need to learn these things and fill in your knowledge gap, because it's when you're in a painful state like you are right now, that's when you're open to learning something new. Because when you go up to, because most of you, when they come to my work, it's not because things are going well in their life. That's why when you get to the point when you're doing well with this stuff, then you try to help your single friends that aren't doing too well. Until they're in that state where they've gotten to a place where they realize this shit ain't working, my strategy for getting a girlfriend or dating is not working, until they recognize it themselves, they won't be open to what my book has to say. They won't be open to reading it. So just keep that in mind. For all you, I appreciate all those people that like referring my work, but you never care more about the other person than they care about themselves and their own success. They have to be open to it. And when I first really started learning this stuff and grasping it, I thought this was like the most mind-blowing shit I'd ever learned in my life. I was like, everybody needs to know this. So I wanted to tell all my friends. But the interesting thing was, most of them they didn't want to hear it. They weren't open to it. They admit that things weren't going the way they should be in their life, but they just weren't open to it. And after several years of trying, beating people over the head with that stuff and telling them things when they just weren't open to learn it, I started teaching this stuff to people who did. So if you're going to help somebody, give them the option and ask them if they'd like your help or your advice. And if not, fuck it. Don't beat yourself over the head for no reason. So he says, I stumbled upon your videos and I implemented a few of your suggestions. This tells me that you're trying to cherry pick information instead of reading the book 10 to 15 times. You can't fucking get around it. And so what happens is you're starting to fill in your knowledge gap, but you're filling it a lot more completely if you start reading the book cover to cover 10 to 15 times. You got to get to know it so well you don't have to think about it anymore. That way you know the principles. That way you know the techniques, you know the strategies. When something happens, when you understand the principle, then when a woman does something when you're with her or you're interacting with her, you know what to do instinctually because you understand the principle. But he says, I've implemented a few of your suggestions, but they've seemed to backfire. I executed a rebound hookup, but the sex only brought me back to intimate ties with the ex. Well, the bottom line is, if that rebound that you were hooking up with knocked your fucking socks off, you wouldn't care about the ex. That's the reality. If you think about the hottest supermodel in the world who you think you'd love to get with, and imagine that you met that person, you got to go out on a date with that person and hook them up, you wouldn't care about the ex at all. So replacing your ex with somebody who's mediocre, that's not what I'm about. I'm a peak performance coach. I want you to have somebody that knocks your fucking socks off. So great, you hooked up with one girl. Keep circulating. The idea is to learn the things that are in the book and apply it, because you never know when that next great love of your life is going to walk into your life. And if you're not prepared, you're going to fuck it up. And if you're cherry picking things like it seems like you're doing here from that last sentence here as I read, you're going to fuck it up unnecessarily. And now you're going to be stinging twice. And if you're stinging again from it, it's going to be all your fault, because at this point, now with the knowledge that you have to learn, the potential knowledge of learning my book, and then you don't take advantage of it and experience pain, well then, you deserve what you get, dude. Take advantage of it now. It's like Confucius said, success depends upon prior preparation. Without said preparation, there's sure to be failure. So take the time to do it right. And plus, when you see just people watching men and women interact with one another, and reading the book 10 to 15 times, and just people watching, that will build your confidence, because you can see all around you people interacting with each other, and you see those subtle behaviors that are really hidden to most people, and you go, wow, this shit really does work. This guy knows what he's fucking talking about. That builds your confidence. And that builds your confidence to start implementing more of it, learning more of it, And the more your confidence starts to grow, guess what? The more you're going to smile, the better you're going to feel. It felt empty and completely unfulfilling. Honestly, it's a bit embarrassing. Everybody feels this way, dude. You're not unique. You're not alone in that. Everybody goes through the same shit. But you have to feel it. You got to heal it. You got to experience it. I feel weak being impacted by this deeply. Notice that's like the typical guy. I got to avoid this. I get it. How do I get out from under this? What you resist persists. So he's resisting feeling these emotions because to him it's weakness. This is how most guys, our society teaches us to think this way. But you have to feel these negative emotions and not judge them. They're just, negative emotions really is just, it's stuck energy. That's all it is. If you move that energy through your nervous system and you experience it by being authentically present, it dissolves. And then the muscle tension goes away and then you feel better than you've ever felt. If you've ever had a really good cry in your life when you felt bad or something happened, you'll notice that I always feel better. Let me look at kids. They always feel better. Look at women. They cry. Most women cry and they're comfortable with it. And they always feel better afterwards. I don't want my ex back. I just want to be free of this suffocating feeling. Is it just a matter of letting time do its thing? Or are there other strategies I'm not aware of? Take this time to suffer and be grateful for your suffering. And be glad you're suffering. And just get into the emotion. Because happiness is a great emotion. So can sadness be. Be grateful for your sadness. Because the sadness makes you appreciate joy and happiness. It gives you a reference point. I've continued my gym and workout routines, and I've taken up new projects, and I tried to stay busy, so I'm not just sitting around moping, and yet I feel numb all the time. You need to feel it. Right now, you're stuck in a stress state, and you're not feeling good. And when you're not feeling good, it's going to be next to impossible to attract a woman who knocks your socks off. So like I said, take the time to be alone by yourself, be present with your feelings, and just state whatever you feel. I feel sad, I feel depressed, I feel lonely, I feel like things are never going to get better, I feel like this shit's never going to fucking end, I feel like I'm never going to meet anybody better than the last girl that I was with. It's okay to acknowledge that, just don't judge it, just feel it, feel whatever you feel. Totally get into it, and totally be present with it, and be grateful for whatever negative, shitty feelings that you're feeling. And then once you do that, you'll notice it's like you get into it and 5-10 minutes go by, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about something, you're thinking about washing your car. And you're like, how'd I go from feeling like it was the end of the world, now I'm thinking about washing my car? And you're like, it's like you catch yourself and you've been thinking about things you're going to do to wash your car or cut your lawn or grocery shop, whatever it happens to be. And you realize, I totally got out of that horrible, painful place that I was in, and I didn't even realize when I got out of it. And that's what happens. When you get into the moment, it's like you lose yourself in the moment. You lose yourself in the emotion. And once you're present with it, it completely dissolves. And then you're on to the next moment. And it's really magical how that works. And you can go from crying your eyes out and your eyes being all red and bloodshot, and you realize that 15 minutes later, you've been sitting there for like 10 minutes thinking about painting your fucking house or something, or thinking about your favorite sports team, and your attitude's completely different. You're like, wow, it's amazing. That's what happens. What you fear, you attract. What you resist persists, but what you look at and what you experience will disappear. So experience everything, be present with it, and that's the quickest way to get out of it. And it comes in waves. You might feel shitty in the morning, and then you have a good 3 or 4 hours, and then you start feeling shitty again. You're like, oh man, why am I feeling... Don't think about it like that. Just get into the emotion, and you'll get right out of it. And as the weeks go by, you'll notice it'll get less and less and less and less, to the point where you're not hijacked by those negative emotions anymore, and you don't feel so bad, and you're able to move past it, and you don't have that suffocating feeling anymore. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching session. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking whichever option works best for you. And I will talk to you soon.